Obviously, Marcus was a big part of the organization, and I had some really good conversations with him early on. Obviously, it was super early, but the trade happened and went down, and it happened pretty quickly, honestly. And really excited to have Brandon here. Obviously, Marcus was, again, a big part of this World Series run and turnaround that happened in this organization, and was excited to potentially work with him and this core group, but also really excited about the new acquisition in Brandon. And what we needed was an outfield production, obviously, and Brandon's definitely going to provide that. Left-handed hitter, all the things that we were looking for. I think he's going to provide some leadership in that clubhouse. Had some really good conversations with him lately, and so he's excited, we're excited, and I think he's going to really be helpful, especially at the top of the order.
During these conversations, were you actually able to ask the question?
With
Brandon,
yeah, he definitely has a lot, but I will tell you that it's all good. I mean, he's very intentional. He has a lot of substance behind what he's whatever topic we're talking about. He's very intentional. You can tell with his relationships, whether it's with coaches, front office, teammates, getting to know him. He's really driven, and he feels like he has something to prove every single year, and definitely feels like he has something to prove this year after the trade. But you have to understand how it was a lot for him. I mean, he grew up in an organization, it's the only one he knew as a 17-year-old kid, to now where his family grew up, and to make a change was not an easy decision, but very grateful that he made it, and part of what we're trying to do here.
Did the clubhouse need Brandon Nimmo personality?
Not having been in the clubhouse a ton, I can't really answer that question. I know that they've won with that crew before. They just haven't in the last couple years, so I don't know. I think there's a couple things that are needed for us to win. I think he's definitely a big part of that equation. But as far as like the clubhouse dynamic and all of that, I can't really answer that because I wasn't obviously in there to give you like that clear-cut answer. But I do know that he's definitely a positive part of the clubhouse culture that we're trying to create.
So you get Nimmo, you're hoping to have Carter healthy. What have you thought about how you align that out?
There's been conversation with the front office and our coaching staff. I can't tell you exactly what it's going to look like. There's definitely been conversation with Wyatt in center field. There's definitely been conversation with Nimmo on both corners. There's been conversation. Obviously, Carter can play an elite center field. So we're trying to figure all of that out right now, and trying to keep guys healthy on the field every day as well. I think Wyatt can play all three outfield positions, and I think he can win a Gold Glove in all three outfield positions. I think he's that elite. I also think Carter is a Gold Glove center fielder. So do I think he can play the corners? Absolutely. So I know Brandon's played a lot of left field. We've talked about him playing in right field as well. He's open to both. But trying to get these guys healthy on the field and productive for 150 plus is the most ideal situation for us. Trying to figure out how we can do that with Carter is a big thing for us. And I don't know if everyone has the answers right now to keep him healthy the entire year, but I know he's absolutely trying to do everything he can this offseason to prove that he is that guy that can hit righties and lefties, and an everyday player, and get back to where he was in 2023.
What is your, early evaluation of the second base situation to this point?
I think there's a couple guys that are going to do whatever they can to take a hold of that position in spring training and try to win it and not look back. And I think having conversations with Josh Smith, he is motivated to show that he's not only just a first half guy, but he's a second half really productive player as well, and doing what he can this offseason to get his body in a place where it can sustain 162 games. And I also think there was a mental aspect to it as well. I don't think it's always physical with these guys. When there's these kind of second half funks or a couple, late season funks, I think there's some guys, and I'm not saying this is Josh at all, but some guys do want to chase that number at the end. They're trying to have a really successful season, and they're counting down the at-bats or the innings pitched or whatever it is. I think there's a lot that is normal for a younger player to start chasing things that they shouldn't chase, that they weren't chasing at the beginning of the year. And I think they were just playing baseball and trying to figure out how to win games. And I think so sometimes that can creep into younger guys' minds as well. But going back to your previous question, I think Smith is in the mix. Obviously, I think he's going to have a really good shot at it. I think Duran's going to have a shot at it. Freeman's going to have a shot at it. So we have internal options. There's no doubt. Now, is it a platoon? Is it a everyday situation? I don't know really what that looks like yet. But I do think we have some really good options there, and it's going to be fun to see in spring where they how they come in the off season, and who really is hungry for that position and doesn't want to let it go.
With Josh, you mentioned the second half fall-offs he's had. Is there anything to having a full-time position in second base versus a utility guy the whole year? Do you think that makes an impact in how a guy carries and performs?
Potentially, but you've seen some really good players do it, right? Jake Cronenworth, Brendan Donovan, Tommy Edmonds, Ollie Marmol's in this. Hey, Ollie. So I think there's guys that he can look to see that there's been some really successful winning baseball players that are flexible and can play all over the place and also keep their body healthy and be super productive. I think Josh Smith is definitely in that mold of I can play everywhere. I can put together a really good at bat. I'm not a defensive liability anywhere. Is there something to playing one position every day? I'm sure that's easy to just know I'm playing one position and I'm going to hit somewhere in the order around this slot and here we go, plug and play type of thing. But that's not everybody. Those are unicorns, right? So I think he has that ability, but I also think he has the ability to play all over the place and still be super productive.
Back to Evan. You just have to rip the Band-Aid off and let him play every day, or is it something you'd be selective against lefties for him?
In my opinion, in this league, you earn your stripes. So I think you have to give them opportunity to earn your stripes. And so I think there's elite lefties, ace type of lefties in the league that are challenging for lefties and righties, and then there's some lefties that we feel really comfortable about, letting them hit against, whether it's a starter or maybe a middle reliever. But I don't think it's. I think you earn your at bats in this league. Nothing's given, and I think he understands that, and I think he's out there to prove that he can play against lefties. But again, you have to give him a little bit of an opportunity to do that, to produce. And I think Brandon is a very good example. He has been really good against lefties the last few years because he's worked on it and he's had runway and he's hit them at a high clip on base and slug, everything else. So I think that's where Evan wants to become or wants to get to and become. But at the end of the day, it's going to be up to him if he can do it or not.
Gambling has become such a big topic in the league for obvious reasons. As a manager, do you feel like you play any role in making sure nothing like that
Yeah, I think we have that discussion every single spring training. Somebody reads about the pros and cons of it. I know it's more prevalent in today's game, and you see it on billboards all over the place now inside stadiums. But I think it's always a conversation in spring training.
What's your theory on center field in terms of, is it a harder position to play on the body if you're trying to keep somebody easy to track the fly ball? What's your theory about what you want at that position and what challenges you have?
I think nowadays you see the profile has changed a little bit. It used to be kind of the fast little guy that is patrolling the outfield. Now you look up and you're seeing some big old boys out there roaming center field, right? In our division, just for example, there's a guy in center field in Seattle that's a pretty big boy that can cover some ground. I think Wyatt can be that guy. It's typically one of your best athletes. It's a leadership position, and I think I've always thought that left field was actually the toughest ball to read off the bat. I played all three, but I also wasn't elite at any of those three, so I can't give you like this tough, hard take on what everyone else thinks. But talking to people around the league, the way the ball spins and dives and everything, left field is really challenging. Does the guy have speed? Does he have leadership position qualities? And I think that is kind of what I'm really looking for. And I think if you give either Evan or Wyatt or whoever takes that position over, the everyday kind of role, I think they'll really grow into it, and I think you'll see Gold Glove votes with either one of those guys.
What conversation with Josh Young, kind of where he stands after two kind of rough years following his All-Star season? What's kind of his outlook heading into next season?
I want him to come in hungry, and I want him to try to win a position. I mean, that is literally the goal of the majority of our guys. And I think Albert Pujols said that after winning an MVP when he came into spring training. So if a guy like that says it, I think our guys can say it as well. I do feel like he has some things on the offensive side that he's working on and can continue to work on with JV. They're working on it at Globe Life right now. He's been kind of all around working with our hitting coaches and trying to figure out how to get back to that 2023 version again. He's a big physical kid that should be hitting for some slug, and I think the message really is that I want him to be feared once again. I want him to be in the box. He's a third baseman on a team that is positioned to go to the playoffs and make a run at this thing, and he should be feared whenever he gets in the box. And how can you create that mindset from the opposing dugout once again? So I think he's working on those types of things. I don't want him to be something that he's not. I want him to be the version that he was in 2023, and not try to tinker too much and try to be this player that he just isn't. Yeah.
What did you see this year that stood out in you watched the show? What kind of conversations
I do. Jake's one of my favorite human beings, not just players, but just an unbelievable person. And he was really, really good for us in Miami. I think he wanted to get off on such a strong, fast start to justify the trade that I think it worked against him. And then he's fighting and trying to get 4 hits every single game and becoming somebody that he wasn't, and which I think he was trying to play catch up the majority of the year, and then he got hurt, came back maybe a little bit too early, and then here you go on a kind of rougher year for his standards. We have a lot of guys that are motivated this offseason because of what happened last year, and Jake is one of them. So a lot of these guys are hitting a lot. You're going to hear this probably from everybody. The cliche, best shape of my life, feels so great going into spring training. I think there's a lot of our guys that are probably going to say that because they are super motivated from what happened last year, especially on the offensive side. And Jake will tell you that he's not happy what happened last year, and he had a wrist surgery. He had oblique issues. I mean, he had some hamstring or quad, something that happened as well. So he had a rough. He's a tough kid. Tried to play through a lot of this thing to try to play catch up, and I think it caught up to him for the majority of the year. But I'm looking for a big year out of Jake.
I'm assuming you guys have talked since the end of the
Yeah.
Is there anything that's
Well, yeah, like I just said, he's already hitting. and that was after wrist surgery. So so he had to take some time off, and I think when you're injured, you have time to reflect on some things that happen. And like I told you a little earlier, is he was trying to do too much too early to justify some stuff. And I think he can just go out and be himself and just play baseball. I think he's going to be just fine because he's a smart kid, hard worker. He's a guy that you don't have to worry about and babysit at all. He's a pro, and I think he's looking to get back to having another big year for himself and for us.
What do you consider the most important part of that job, and maybe how has that answer shaped or changed from your experience?
It always comes back to relationships. That's what this job is building the relationships and getting the buy-in and the trust from your player and your coaching staff. Not just because he's sitting right here, but I learned from some really good guys that I got to sit next to before taking the job, with Ollie and Andy Green, and realizing that the relationships are the most important part of this thing, and trying to get the best version of the player every single day. That is the job. The X's and O's are the X's and O's. We're going to mess up quite a bit, unfortunately, and then also good players. They cover your mistakes when you have good players. When you make the mistake and then Corey Seager hits a 3-run home run, thank God I messed up on that bullpen move, but he covered me. Stuff like that is going to happen. But if you can lose the clubhouse quickly, and they don't want to hear any BS. They want to know the truth. And I think if you sugarcoat anything, you're done. So as in this seat, it gets hot sometimes. But I think the last thing that they want is anything sugar-coated. They're big leaguers for a reason, and they want to know the truth. And so you have to give it to them. But I also think you can be I'm an intense personality in general, but I think you have to be positive as much as you can throughout the season. And because they're going to get hit on a lot of negative the whole year. And so as intense as I can be, also as positive as I can be, I think is always the goal.
This is the last one. During this offseason, you said you wanted to make the lineup less predictable. Looking at what you have right now, what gives you the confidence to say that you can achieve that heading into spring training?
Yeah, I just think there's different ways that the game will tell you to win the game that day. And so if you are predictable where it's just home run and slug or nothing, you're in trouble. You're going to have these peaks and valleys. The last thing that we want to have are these peaks and valleys. We want to have guys that can play the small game. We want guys that can slug, and I think we're achieving that with some of the off-season moves that we're doing, and trying to continue to build like a complete offensive roster and not just a one type of way to win type of roster. And I think the coaching staff is bought in on that as well. The new guys that we've brought in believe in that, and I think that's a big deal. But if you get the buy-in from your leaders on that roster, I think that's when it goes a long way. And so far we've trying to acquire the best guys that can achieve that for the 2026 season.
Okay, thank you.